The program I used to screen record it just said recording terminated, and I checked the file and all of it's gone. So the first 40 minutes of the podcast will now have no video. And I'm going to put this at the beginning of hey, everybody, the first 40 minutes of this podcast is not going to have any video. Sorry about that. What is up, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning in to the Anti-Gravity Group podcast. My name is Braden Carlson.
I'm Taylor Jesse.
And today we're going to be discussing one of the most unfortunate topics of the podcast thus far, all of our failures in high-powered rocketry.
That's right.
I kind of had a lot more in there than I thought. Once I listed them all out, it was a little sad. But the worst part is most of them are fairly recent. So I think it's just because I flew a rocket once every 3 years until the past couple of years, and now I've really kicked up my flight scheduling. So the failures have to come with it consequentially. Is consequentially a word? Did I just make that up?
I don't know. It sounds good to me, though.
Okay, it's convincing. All right, well...
I didn't finish college.
Yeah, me neither. We both dropped out, so we're not really qualified to have that conversation. Leave in the comments.
But it sure sounds like a smart word to me.
Yeah, I'm a writer. I guess I probably should know, but that's, that's either near or there. Nice. All right. Well, on that note, I'm going to kick it to Taylor first for all of his failures because we'll get him out of the way before we dig deep into mine.
Are we doing all mine first, or do you want to alternate?
Oh yeah, I guess we could alternate.
Starting at the old days.
Yeah. Well, let's hop in the way back machine. What is your first high power rocketry failure you can remember?
Oh, so high power? I thought you just meant like everything.
Oh, if you're digging deeper than that, go for it. I have a couple that maybe I can remember.
There's only one, but it's super memorable. I had an Estes Python. This is probably 2001, if I had to guess. We're at the local NAR launch, and I still don't really know what happened, but it went up about 20 feet and took a hard 90-degree turn and went into flew into the side of a barn.
Oh my God.
Then, there were cows mooing in the distance, and it was did that really just happen?
That's pretty awesome.
And yeah, it was pretty cool. Actually, I love that rocket, so it was kind of not cool. But I mean, it was straight out of a movie. It didn't seem possible. So anyway, rebuilt the Python with a mailing tube or something. I don't know. It was heavier. Put an E15. This is at some point later than that. Put an E15 in it, and for whatever reason, back in those days, it seemed like the E15s just chuffed a lot, which we kind of thought was cool, but wasn't the greatest for flights. And so it sat on the pad and chuffed forever. Took off, the delay was too long, and it kind of did a big arc into the forest that surrounded the field and deployed as it was going through the trees. So that was pretty cool.
That is cool. Did you retire it after that? It doesn't seem like it's real lucky.
Well, I think I retired it, but, my grandpa being my grandpa, took the parts home, and next time I saw him said, "Here's your Python." And it's all kinds of stuff put back together. And it's well, it's not quite the Python, but that is a rocket.
And isn't that all that matters?
So shout out to my grandpa for fixing all of my super destroyed rockets back in the day.
Well, I guess if we're going to go back
when I had given up on them.
I guess if we're going to go back that far, I could include my SSARV Condor with one of the gliders worked perfect. It's supposed to go around in a circle and then it comes back down. And the other one just kind of went straight into the foothills by my grandma's house, and I never saw it again. And I was really, really sad about that. I think I was probably 5 or 6. I didn't even build the thing. I basically sat there and watched my dad build it, but I helped, quote unquote. And so I was just really sad, and we didn't want to go hiking in the foothills to find it. So gone forever.
I actually have a similar ARV Condor story. It was really early in our rocket days, probably within the first year or two. We found my my dad found an ARV Condor at Hobby Lobby, and my brother and my dad are really big into planes, so they're like kind of stoked. We'd never seen a rocket with gliders and stuff. And the gliders on the ARV Condor look vaguely like pointy, kind of like a jet or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, we didn't know anything about balancing gliders, so went up, and then both gliders just beelined hard straight over the trees, just like into the horizon. Like, oh, those are gone forever. Cool.
Perfect. The squadron rolled out.
Well, that was fun. Yeah.
That's what you want. Awesome.
So, yeah, that was it on the ARV Condor. It had a short life.
Yeah, it seems like most people that did an ARV Condor had a very similar outcome. But even the big one, wasn't there a huge one at Midwest Power at some point?
Midwest Power, like Midwest Power 2 or something. The gliders didn't really work, as I recall.
They were more like fallers, if you will. All right. Well, what's your first high power failure then?
Oh, actually, okay. There's one I forgot. The very first one was my original Aerotech Sumo, and this was like right after I started flying high power. I had saved up enough money to buy a Dr. Rocket 29180 off of the Rocketry online auctions. For those that remember that, some old school stuff there.
OGs.
And yeah. And I was down at flying with Tripoli Tulsa at High Frontier at Pawhuska, and I flew my Sumo on a H-165. That was my first high power flight. I was like 11 years old, I think, and it was awesome. And then we won an H-128 in a raffle, and I was like, oh, perfect, I get to fly it again. But I learned all too quickly the old getting sloppy with the grease.
Yep.
Got some grease on that delay. Chute didn't really open.
Yeah,
came in ballistic.
For those unfamiliar with that concept, that's actually the first thing on my list as well. It was my 4-inch Ralphco crayon, my blue one. Shout out to the blue one. No, maybe it was red. I think it was the red one. On an H97, and I had put together some 2940 120 loads before, but somebody had told me, they're like, hey, when you guys put that motor together, make sure you really grease the delay element outside, because it's hard to get out if you don't have enough grease on it. So, of course, I took that way too much to heart, being, I think I was like 13 or 14 at the time. I don't remember. But yeah, so basically, be careful when you're assembling a motor deploy motor with the grease on the delay element, because if you get grease on the forward end of the smoke charge, the delay element.
Well, actually either end.
Oh yeah, true. I guess if you get it on the other end, it just won't light.
That's what happened to mine.
Oh, mine burned all the way through. But because I had like basically plugged the delay well with grease, there was no way for it to light the black powder.
Squeezed it on the forward side.
Yep. So, no black powder charge, no ejection charge. In comes the ballistic red crayon, or blue, I don't remember. But it was my first ballistic flight, and unfortunately, not my last. But we'll dig more into that later.
So next on my list was after that, I had a PML AMRAAM 2 and an AMRAAM 3. And I was flying those successfully, but I had about a 1-year stretch where I got through all of my growing pains, if you will, of making dumb mistakes and just building stuff too fast, and I don't know, going through it, So the first one was a scratch built rocket from PML Components that I thought I wanted to do air starts. I had a Perfect Flight Mini Timer 3, and so it was a 4-inch rocket. I squeezed a 38 and two 29s in it, and I was gonna air start a couple of Smoky G's from like a J350, and I learned about drag separation, and it came down, and just being PML Components just kind of shattered.
A good thing the outboards didn't light.
So, yeah, that would have been horribly embarrassing.
Parachutes out and just light them up.
Yeah. So yeah, as soon as that J motor burned out, the it just drag separated, and I remember like I didn't understand the concept of drag separation, so I was like, why did it come apart? Like did my charges go off? But after that probably the same year or maybe the next year, I was really into the Estes corkscrew, so I built a couple upscales. I had a 2-inch one that I flew a lot successfully. Then I went to a 3-inch one, but the problem is I was on a 14 or 15-year-old's budget. Or no, I probably wasn't even that old. Somewhere in there, I don't know. I was a young teenager with no money, and so I could afford a 3-inch phenolic tube and just used whatever else I had in my garage. No glass or anything, and it was horribly ugly. And
was this the CA one?
Was just used. Yeah, this is the CA one.
Oh yeah.
I had this. My dad's boss, who my dad does trim carpentry. My dad's boss had went to some sort of woodworking conference for some reason, and there was someone there that was selling giant bottles of CA for woodworking, or not selling, but it was like a trade show, I guess. So it was like
it's a door prize.
Somehow he ended up with this giant bottle of CA, and my dad said, hey, I think my son would like that. And so he gave it to me, and I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. I could build rockets so much faster. But, I mean, it was like a 16-ounce bottle of CA, like thick CA, with a huge aerosol can of the
the Insta set,
the accelerator.
That's basically what I've got in my work room right now, and I love it so much.
And if you give that to a 12 or a 13-year-old, you have just created a whole bunch of problems.
You've created a monster.
Yeah. I did use epoxy too, but it's like that was used too much in the build process.
Nah, there's no such thing as too much CA. But anyway, how'd the flight go?
That actually wasn't the failure. It was just kind of resulted in some really ugly stuff.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. And it's classic, like built it right before the launch, so it's unpainted. Someone actually said, don't ever bring a rocket this ugly to a launch again.
Oh my God.
So shout out to the Tripoli Tulsa guys for putting me down like that.
Yeah. Once again, the people really supportive of young people in the hobby. They've always been here.
But to be fair, that time I probably deserved it. That was it was a little on edge. That was probably the maybe the worst thing I built as a young person flying high power.
Was that before or after it flew that he said that?
Before.
Oh, wow. So we called it, really.
Well, so I flew it on an I-225 fast jack, and it worked perfectly. Dual deploy, the whole thing. It was just horribly ugly. Just super ugly. And because it worked, of course, I was like, let's put a J350 in it. So
in the corkscrew? In the 3-inch corkscrew? Yeah, that seems fine.
See, now it seems obvious that wouldn't work, even if you built it with good materials.
Yeah, I was going to say, for people unfamiliar with the Estes corkscrew, it has a canted motor mount and a tabbed fin that makes it spin and corkscrew. And if it's an intentional off-axis spin, so getting it moving really, really fast could cause any problems, or could cause some problems. So, yeah, anyway, what happened?
The next logical step would have been the 38-600 Blackjack or something.
Right.
But no, it had to be the J350.
Of course, it's the J350.
It shredded so low. I don't know if I've ever seen a rocket shred at such a low altitude.
Just instantly.
It just the whole, there was so much stress on the fins that it just sort of exploded the whole fin can area.
That's awesome. The turbulent deconstruction.
Yeah.
Maybe you should rebuild
the main
it.
charge still fired. There's a part of me that wants to
do it again so I can get a good
video
of it.
I want to do a 4-inch so I can fly 54 Longbirds in it.
J145.
That would be
That'd be
sick, actually.
crazy. The corkscrew long burn skid mark.
That might have to happen because that would be too cool.
All right. Well, there you go.
What? No, it's not over yet.
Oh,
though.
good.
I. So that would have, that launch was probably September of that year. We went to Midwest Power probably the next month or whatever, right? In that time, I decided, because I still had the upper part of the rocket, it just exploded the fin can. I decided I'm going to rebuild it, and didn't really do anything different. I just rebuilt it. I was like, well, I just won't put a J350 in it.
Naturally.
I put an I-284 in it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And how'd that go?
It shredded also.
Well, darn. Who could have predicted this?
So anyway, at that point, I was like, okay, I'm done with these. Well, for one, building 3-inch upscale corkscrews on a budget, but also I'm like, no more shreds. And so I'm happy to say I haven't had a shred since then.
Well, that is really no shred. I don't think I've ever shredded a rocket that I can recall. I guess it would be on my list. So no, I can say that I can remember anyway. I've never shredded a rocket, but my next one is my beloved Mad Cow Mozzie, which I had a extreme fascination with the Estes Mosquito when I was younger. And I always wanted to do a really big upscale. My dad drew plans of a 6-inch one from PML parts. And
I didn't know that.
Scott Glass nose cone. And then he printed it on big CAD paper because he's a CAD designer. But this was post 2008 housing crisis, and my dad designed houses, so we, couldn't afford to build it. But I talked about it a lot. So anyway, I wound up with a Mad Cow Mozzie. I think somebody on the Rocketry forum, Secret Santa, bought it for me. I always got crazy good gifts during the Secret Santa thing, so now I do it every year and just buy something really cool for whoever I get, because I feel like I have to pay back that karma now. But anyway, I built the thing. I don't remember if I flew it once before. Part of me thinks I flew it on a G64, and then it went fine. But then
that's kind of a lot of motor for that rocket.
Yeah, it's okay. It's fine. But I put a Cosden G65 Dirty Harry in it. And I had a few distractions, we'll say, while I was putting the motor together, because I was doing it at the launch site and forgot to put the O-ring on the forward closure. So it took off and just immediately burned through and punched the nose off. And I guess it was kind of a shred, so maybe I was wrong a little bit there. But yeah, it was definitely a motor failure, and it was definitely my fault. So unfortunate, but I think that to this day is my only motor failure, and it was my fault. So
wow,
that's pretty good, I guess.
Yeah, I guess my next one would be my original Nike Smoke. The death of my original Nike Smoke. That was my first. That was actually the first thing that came after. We did a big step up after the corkscrew failure, because I made out pretty well at Christmas that year with money, gift money from Christmas, and bought myself I was 12 years old. So, okay, I guess this corkscrew would have happened when I was 12. Because I know this happened right after that. But I bought a Polecat 5.5-inch Nike Smoke, and I was super stoked on it. And I'm like, I'm going to do everything like everything's going to be perfect. I'm not, this rocket's based on my dream rocket at the time. And I did. And it flew, I went straight to K motors, and every flight was perfect. Everything, I was just learning new things super fast and gaining confidence with successful flights and whatever. Well, fast forward a few years, 2010, LDRS 29 at Lucerne. My grandpa wanted to go to Lucerne, so we road tripped out there, and we just didn't have a good time there. I feel like he flew a bunch of rockets, and they kind of all crashed, as I recall. we had just gotten a 54 2560 case, and so I was like, I want to fly a K700. So I put a K700 in my Nike Smoke. I was running dual altimeters, but on the pad, only one of them. I only had one apogee charge show continuity, and before this, I'd only flown 1706 loads in it, and those all have motor deploy as an option, so I would just run that as a backup. Well, the K700 is plugged. I've never had a charge not fire, so it'll be fine.
Famous last words.
It was, in fact, not fine. Came in ballistic until the main successfully fired on the way down, and so it actually saved the nose cone, and then the rocket would have kind of made it, except that we were on a dry lake bed, and so it was like hitting a parking lot. So the entire rocket kind of got flattened into a D shape, which was actually kind of cool. I mean, except for the fact my rocket was destroyed.
Right.
But blew out the parachute, destroyed the electronics, bent the motor case, the whole deal. That one hurt a lot as a broke teenager.
Yeah. Yeah.
But since I had the nose cone, I was able to rebuild it, and I still have the rebuilt Nike Smoke to this day. So
that reminds me, somebody at Rockstock this past weekend at Lucerne flew a 5.5-inch Polecat Nike Smoke on 5 I-800 VMAXs.
Holy crap.
It was insane, and they were all supposed to light on the ground, and I don't know what he was using, but they definitely didn't. So it took off super fast and then just like sporadically lit motors on the way up. But it did the same thing where it was coming in ballistic and the main charge blew the nose off. And I was like, how big was the charge for that to work, especially on a Nike Smoke? Like that nose cone, I feel like the drag from the shape of it makes it real hard to just punch it off like that. But I guess not. It's a repeated case, so that's proof. But yeah, so that thing got destroyed. The Polecat 5.5-inch Nike Smokes just really like to die. And incidentally, that's what's next on my list.
Yeah, well, just don't fly it at Lucerne. I think that's the end.
That might be, yeah, that could be it. Too bad I live 40 minutes away from there now, and I just got another one. So I also had like a dream fascination for the Polecat 5.5-inch Nike Smoke, and after the whole housing recovery sort of thing, my dad got a job in Houston, Texas, so we moved down there. And for my 16th birthday, my sister had like her sweet 16 party and yada yada, and I was like, well, that's kind of a girl thing, and I don't have, this is me thinking as a teenager, nobody canceled me for that last sentence. And I don't have any friends, so I don't really want a birthday party because we just moved here and I don't know anybody. I want a rocket. So I convinced my parents to buy me the 5.5-inch Polecat Nike Smoke, and this is later Polecat. So it's a 75 millimeter dual deploy with 3/8 ply fins. And in my head, my dad was going to get his level 3 soon. So I built it to fly on an M. So this was like my first experience, like really taking time sanding and filling stuff. I did tip-to-tip fiberglass on the fins, and I didn't want you to be able to tell there was fiberglass on them. So I learned how unfortunate it is to sit there and sand Bondo for hours, but I made it look really nice. And boy, it had a rough life, man. The first flight was at Tripoli Houston's Hearn launch site when I was 16 on a CTI K740, which is one of my favorite motors ever, the C-Star 4-grain 54. And I used an adapter that was made from a Pringles can and a piece of 54 millimeter phenolic. And somehow the Pringles can adapter with the tape thrust ring just didn't hang on against the K740, if you can believe that. So
wait, a question I just thought of this. Something I've never asked about the Pringles can adapter. Was the thrust transferred through like the metal part of the can? Like the bottom of the can?
No, that was cut off. It had a really nice masking tape thrust ring.
So it was purely used as a tube.
Yes. the masking tape thrust ring is definitely more to blame than the Pringles can itself. But so it shot like a good, 8 inches up into the rocket and still launched the thing like 1,100 feet up. All the recovery stuff worked, so went and got the rocket, and everything below the fins is just completely torched because a rocket motor was, burning it. So I had to cut off all of that tube to the back, right up against the fins. So it was about 2 or 3 inches shorter than it should have been, which really affected the scale look, I guess. But Taylor will tell you it doesn't matter because I painted it black. And so then I think I've told the story in the Nike Smoke video of Jackie bringing me centering rings and me and my dad and Crazy Jim fixing it. We flew it on a L1100 Blue Sparky research motor that I made with my friend Justin, and it worked. It really almost didn't, though. Like the 1/8-inch stainless steel nozzle washer on that snap ring case looked like a bowl when we got it back. Like it was about ready to spit that thing and the nozzle out, but it held on just long enough. And of course, I was joyous because it held on long enough for Neil McGilvray to get a really good picture and Bob Utley to get a really good video of it. So it wound up in Rockets magazine and in the Airfest, Airfest 18 DVD.
Yeah, Airfest 18.
And it's actually on my channel as well as the Rockets magazine channel. So of course, like I'm going ballistic. This is my childhood dream for Rocketry to be in Rockets magazine, and it's a Polecat Nike Smoke, and it's a motor that I made. It was awesome. And the nose cone, the little bulk plate actually broke free, and the nose cone got lost, but somebody found it and mailed it to me. Fast forward a couple years, I turn 18. At Tripoli Idaho launch, I decided I'm going to use the Nike Smoke on a Loki 6-grain or 5-grain, I don't remember, 38 millimeter I motor. And I'm setting up the charges like I usually do with the glove tip thing, which has worked every single time I've done it up to this point, and pretty much every time after. And a Tripoli Idaho member comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, you shouldn't be doing charges like that. That's unreliable. Do this." And he's like, "Yeah, you just put in this little centrifuge tube." And I was like, "Do I put anything in there with the black powder?" He's like, "No." So I just had a single charge of loose black powder floating around in a centrifuge tube, and stupidly decided that I didn't want to take the electronics bay apart and take the other altimeter out, even though stupidly I had decided to just fly with one, even though there was two in there. I don't really know why. I maybe didn't have E-matches or something. Long story short, it came in ballistic, completely destroyed my poor 5.5-inch Nike Smoke, and my Perfect Flight mod, and my RRC2 Mini with it, which was, of course, as an 18-year-old with no job. Oh, I guess I worked at Old Navy. As an 18-year-old with a job where I worked 15 hours a week for $7.25 an hour, devastating blow. And I honestly don't know how long it was between that attempt and trying to fly a rocket again, because I was just like, oh, well, I don't have anything now. I was fortunate enough that it only went like 800 feet, and there was so much nose cone and electronics bay as a crumple zone that the case survived, so I didn't have to buy the case. But yeah, that was a rough one. So I'm glad to have another one, and I'm not putting it through that again, if I can help it anyway.
I like how the turning point for both of us, I guess, just in our, we had made it with the 5.5-inch Nike Smoke.
Yeah, dude, it was a dream come true. It really was.
Mine looked really good too, at least compared to any other rocket I'd built up to that point, because I wasn't real big on like
finishing.
Trying to make stuff look really good.
Right.
I mean, stuff before that looked okay, but not like trying to make the fillets perfect and like doing the whole thing.
Yeah, mine either. There's like my Kiss Dark Star. Those fillets haunt me to this day. The fact that I was just like, that's good, and painted over them. Insane. So bad.
After the Nike Smoke, I don't think I had a failure until for like 8 years after that. Oh, no, I did have one. So the RMS EZ motors had just come out. The ones where they're
the pre-assembled delay, right?
Pre-assembled delay bulkhead thing. And before, this was right before Airfest, I had been hearing that they were having problems with like early deployment. And so I get to the launch and I'm buying an i357 from Tim, and I'm like, I get it. I'm looking at the package, and I'm like, this says RMS EZ. I've heard these have been having problems. And he tells me, no, I haven't had anyone tell me of it. I haven't had any reports of problems, and I've sold a lot of these recently. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll fly it.
There you go. Yeah.
Or I guess I'll buy it. You know, Tim says it's fine, so it's going to be fine. And I put it in my, well, actually, what is funny, it's right here.
Ah, the Fat Boy.
My Estes Fat Boy that I converted to 38 millimeter. That's laminated with carbon fiber. Had flown many times on 3-grain iMotors, so I was excited to fly it again. Put an i357 in it. I always just ran, well, I guess whenever I still fly it, I put just a full 14-second delay in it, and you can't see it, but it seems like it does what it needs to do. I don't know. Well, as soon as it burns out, it goes out of sight, basically. Well, I hear a faint pop after the motor burns out, and I'm like, oh no, it happened. And I knew you would never be able to see this rocket come down, so I'm just like waiting. What's interesting about the rocket is I made the motor tube stick out of the top a little bit as like an anti-zipper thing, and basically the chute goes around the motor tube. And then you just put a little dog barf in the tracker in the nose cone. So the chute had deployed on the way up. It had ripped basically just snapped the Kevlar. Rocket continued to go up
without the nose cone.
Without the nose cone. And all of a sudden, it sounds like a tornado siren. Like something about the open tube on top caused this crazy like wail, and everyone's just like has this nervous look.
Oh no.
And the thing comes down ballistic like right in front of the flight line.
Perfect.
At this point, I'm like, well, the nose cone, where's the nose cone? And then I hear it hit, and I actually saw it in the corner of my eye, and it kind of dropped in the flight line. And I'm like, oh no, it hit something. And I run over, and it went like there was no one at whoever's tent this was. And it just like went perfectly in between like a bunch of stuff. And so I picked it up, and everything was all right. And it actually mostly didn't do any, like the body part of the Fat Boy is built so strong. That's why I still have it on my desk here. It kind of messed up some of the internal stuff, so I don't fly it. I built a new one, but yeah, pretty crazy. That was just that was a scary moment, I guess.
Yeah, it must be nice
having
for it to not
carbon
hit
Fat
something
Boy
on the flight line.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
We'll dig into that later. All right, well, I think I have these backwards, so the next one I'll talk about my IRI. That's the plural for iris, by the way. Nothing like too crazy on these guys. The first one was awesome. N2220 Dark Matter. The motor wasn't awesome. It kind of just sounded like a big blackjack motor. It didn't have any like sparky growl, and I was really sad about it because this is an ungodly expensive motor. And then right after that, at LDRS in Bonneville, I flew a K456, and it was so much better than my N, and I was really upset about it. But I dropped the iris definitely faster than I should have. So when it hit the ground, it broke the fin. It cracked the fillet. The fin didn't come all the way off, but it's just a fun parallel in that Lock Precision had happened to send me the 7.5-inch iris kit as well, or their prototype one. And we flew it at Gene Dry Lake Bed at a Tripoli Vegas launch. Dave and Jay, I didn't bring it to fly it. I just brought it because they were going to be there. And we were just going to like kind of display it at the AMW trailer, and there was enough parts and kits there, and Dave was willing enough to fly it that we ripped apart a couple of kits, and Dave gave a list to Gloria of all the stuff that we took that he was going to have to reship her, and we flew it on a K850, the single-use 6-grain dark matter, which also was super quiet and disappointing. We flew it motor deploy. It was like a very, very fun 90s style flight to just put a 12-foot rocket up on a 6-grain 54 with motor deploy, and it just kind of worked, but again, on landing, just snapped one of the fins clean off, and it's still sitting in my rocket room without a fin on it. Oh, love those IRI.
Yeah, super fun. My next failure was in 2018, I think. I'm not really sure, but I'd built a 3-inch minimum diameter rocket and flown it like 4 times to 32,000 feet each time. And had basically, I think, 3 successful flights. This was going to be my 4th. So, it was an M685, perfect boost, and then, about 40, maybe 40 second, or yeah, probably about 30 or 40 seconds later, my tracker just goes silent. Which for those that don't know, that means it's in the ground.
That silence is deafeningly loud.
When it's just the perfect amount of time for it to have went up and came back down. Didn't hear it come, it was far enough downrange wherever it was, you couldn't hear it come in. It just is what it is. And so I drove back to the flight line and didn't fly anything else for the entire weekend. And that was that. Super. That was my first, like, as an adult, that was my first, basically my first failure as an adult, I guess, besides the fat boy thing. But I didn't really have any physical damage from that. So that was that one hurt a lot because I couldn't really, like, that 75, 76, 80 case is like dumb expensive. And it's even more expensive now, but
Yeah, that's
how it goes.
My next story also features the tracker signal just disappearing in the form of my 4-inch Wildman Punisher, which was the fin can section of my level 3 flight, and had flown once before on an L1040, but I flew it at Tripoli Idaho launch. It had 2 pumpkins on board because they were doing a pumpkin chunking contest, and you got 1 point per foot of altitude, and you could multiply that by however many pumpkins you could fit in your rocket. So Kelsey had flown his 5-inch Gizmo or Jart on a K1999 with like 8 pumpkins in it because he just kind of stuffed them in there. And but the thing went super, super low. So I was like, oh, well, my rocket's going almost 20,000 feet. I'll pop a couple of these bad boys in there. So I taped them to the shock cord, and I was like, I think I should have you beat. And he's like, not unless you pie, which is like what they call it when your pumpkin explodes on the catapults. And he got his wish. And unfortunately, that nice Idaho sky is so clear that we got to watch all the way from like 19,000 feet as the rocket arced over and then just kept going and came in ballistic, and I got the signature sudden loss of tracker sounds, and yep, there she went. The worst part about that was my dad was also flying an M motor that weekend, so he had loaded our 75-5120 case. Fortunately, Dr. Dave Hassinger had bought and donated a full set of hardware in the, like, around 2010 or something like that to the Tripoli Idaho Club, so people that couldn't afford to buy the hardware could fly level 3 stuff. And so I had I once before used Roustech 5120 complete motor set on there. And on top of losing my rocket, my tracker, my electronics, and some probably nice pumpkins, I had to buy Tripoli Idaho a new 5120 case set. So that one was very fiscally damaging, but not quite as much as the 7680. So I guess I have that to be thankful for.
Oh, speaking of 7680s,
Run it back.
The next year, I decided, because I'd been setting on an M1850 for a few years. So I was like, okay, I'll buy another 7680. But this time I'll at the time I was building my house. And so I was like, I don't have time to make my own tube like I did on the minimum diameter rocket before that. And so anyway, I just threw together like a using fiberglass tube from Wildman and stuff. So just like off the shelf components, which was fine. I wasn't trying to like break a personal record. I was just like wanted to fly the motor in a minimum diameter rocket. So I built this rocket in a couple weeks. It turned out pretty nice. I had a tail cone closure for the M1850, which I was kind of stoked about. Perfect boost. Oh, I guess a little insight before the flight. This is the launch I met Braden at, I think.
Yep.
LDRS 38
in Argonia.
Yeah. And so I just met Braden. We're chilling and discussing my rocket that I'm getting ready to fly. And I'm like, one of the things I was doing differently on this one was sort of instead of a single separation, I was doing like traditional head-in deploy. And to save room, I used some really small Kevlar. What would that be? Wildman 1/4 inch, I guess, or
no? I think it's smaller than that. I think it might be what he calls 1/8 inch. It's like
I don't
really
know. Tim
tiny.
sizing confuses me. In my head, that's Giant Leap 1/4 inch. So yeah, maybe it's Tim's 1/8 inch.
It's very
I'm
small.
not sure. Very small, but the rating for it, the load rating seems like
800 pounds. Yeah. We both had the same. He's like, "You think this shot core is too small?" And I was like, "Nah, dude, it's rated like 800 pounds, right? That should be fine."
And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. It'll be fine." And so my friend Matt, who I just got, another member of the anti-gravity group, although he hasn't flown anything this year, but
honestly, he's really slacking over there, buying houses and selling houses.
We need to get Matt on the podcast again. Anyway,
I know. We'll make a whole episode berating him.
Yeah, it'll be awesome. So this was the first time Matt had been to Argonia, and he was loving it. And so he was getting to see some big rocket stuff. So I was like, all right, buddy, I'm going to show you how to track a rocket from 30,000 feet. It's going to be awesome. And perfect boost. I didn't lose my signal at apogee. And so I was like, oh, yeah, this is going to be awesome. I got signal all the way down. Going to be a perfect recovery. I was like, I'm going to show you how to do it. Let's go. Well, I was getting a signal in an area at Argonia that I had never been to. It was about 2 miles straight south of the rocket pasture, like on some surrounding property where there was brush and a bunch of trees, and this, I'm like trying to triangulate the signal the best I could with what roads were over there. And finally I'm like, we got to go in. So we're following the signal, and then it just keeps jumping around, and I'm like walking through these trees, and I'm like, man, how did it end? This is crazy. I'm like, well, when you fly high, sometimes those winds aloft really carry your rocket in some weird places.
Yeah, you'll get that.
The signal just kept jumping around, and finally I'm like, wait, I wonder, and I look down, and it's just my transmitter on the ground. And I'm like,
which makes a great case for the tracker. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So for anyone that says you can't find a radio tracker, or like it's not as accurate or whatever, like this weekend I actually had a similar thing. I found just the tracker. But anyway, so on one hand, I was super bummed because I'm like, the rocket's gone. On the other hand, I was like, I get my tracker back, and that's pretty impressive that I was able to track just the tracker like 2 miles away by itself.
Yeah, that's always my argument when people are like, GPS is better and this and that. It can pinpoint you right to your rocket. But if you lose lock on GPS and it doesn't come back, that's it. But a RDF tracker, if you get anywhere within the range of it and you start to hear the signal again, there's no way you don't get the rocket back. It just takes time. And that's kind of proof that, like, there's extreme cases where you're still going to get the tracker signal from 2 miles away with just the tracker sitting in the dirt.
I think sometimes people will give up because but it's like, as long as you have signal, you will find it. But you just gotta. It's like me and Postart when we went on that mission to find my fusion at Midwest Power.
Oh yeah.
We ended up going through trees and thorns and all kinds of stuff, and like the signal was just, I don't know what was wrong, if my battery was low in the tracker or if it, was just had enough, but I was getting some wonky signal and we finally found it, but it's like it took 2 hours.
Right. Yeah, and that's, I mean, it's hilarious on one hand that you can just find the tracker, but yeah, at any rate, it's like a disappointing win, but the point is that's not gonna happen with GPS. I've never heard of somebody like the rocket is on the ground and just suddenly they walk close enough that the signal comes back, which I guess is possible, and I'm sure someone will correct me if that exact thing has happened to them. But every time I've seen somebody lose GPS signal and like it's gone once the rocket should be down, it's done. The rocket's been gone. Even at like lake beds and stuff, they're like, well, I lost lock when it went Mach and then it never came back, so I have no idea where it's at. The best part about the RDF tracker is that you can point the receiver around and keep track of where it is in the sky and where it's going. So then once you have a good line, even if you lose the signal on the ground because it goes in a valley or whatever behind a hill, you still know what way it was going and you can just follow that and you will get it back.
Aren't there some GPS trackers that you can RF track as well?
I don't know.
The Beelines were like that. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, really? Like it did both?
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So I don't really know how that works, though. So I never had one. So I can't really comment on that too much. But if that were the case, I mean, that's kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I was going to say, because the ideal situation is having both. If you have GPS, run both. I'm going to run both. Even Alex, who did the R project at Balls, his nose cone came off. And he's like, well, I got most of the rocket back, but I have one of those little beeper trackers on it, so I'll go get it tomorrow. And the next day, he just went out there and found his nose cone.
Wow. And to finish up that story on that particular failure with the minimum diameter rocket, I'm fairly certain the problem was I didn't put I still believe that the size of the shot cord wasn't necessarily the failure or I could have used that size shot cord. The problem was I didn't put a leader on it because that one wasn't zipperless like my other design. So when it deployed at probably a pretty good clip, it just went on the edge of the tube and cut it like a knife edge.
Yeah.
Because on my tracker, which was electrical tape to the shot cord, when I got it back, it still had the electrical tape and there's a bunch of Kevlar fibers on it. So that tells me it wasn't necessarily like the rocket definitely separated. I don't think it shredded. I don't think it shredded or deployed on the way up though, just by the amount of time between because you know how when your drogue deploys, the tracker always gets louder because you have less interference. I could tell like it was the right amount of time between when it launched and when like the signal increased at apogee. So I believe it was everything worked properly. It's just my shot cord broke, which is a really dumb failure and resulted in another lost 75, 76, 80 case. So
yeah, I was going to say one that I actually left out is a good example of the only time I've ever had a problem with an RF tracker or RDF tracker. I should have known better than to fly it too, because it's the one that you had problems with at Bonneville, but it was my 54 minimum diameter that I had to chop down the electronics bay because I decided the last second to use a longer coupler so I'd have more room for electronics, having forgotten that I had already cut the tube like to the perfect length for the 54 case that was going in it. So it didn't fit. I cut it down. I think I might have accidentally put the main out at apogee, and it was pretty windy and going 20,000 feet. So there's a good chance it just made it outside of the range of the tracker, because I had signal for a really, really long time, and then it disappeared, and Macho Matt and I walked like 4 miles through the ankle deep mud and never got the signal back.
In hindsight, we should have just driven way too far and tried to get signal.
We couldn't though, remember, because it was muddy. That's why we walked. It was the year it rained a ton.
But, oh, yeah.
We could have done it a few days later, honestly, because of tracker batteries.
But it might have been worth it to go down to the, like when you come in the back way on the paved road.
Yeah.
We went down by the, like way down by the train tracks. I wonder if you could have found it there. Anyway.
I think it's possible, but that was a little interlude there on a failure, so I'll throw another one at it. My Big Daddy, this past year, tried to do a K185 motor deploy in my 4-inch AMW Big Daddy, and got the iconic tracker signals coming down too fast, and then sudden no tracker signal. And actually, Robert just did a motor deploy K185 as well, and it like fired the ejection charge right at burnout, because he's flown the rocket a bunch of times. I don't think it drag separated. It just like right at the end of the burn, just everything just erupted. I was like, oh my god. So maybe don't do motor deploy K185s, folks. It seems like there's a reason the I-65 isn't available with motor deploy anymore, I think.
Yeah, just the long burn motor deploy just isn't it.
It's not it, certifiably. All right, well, you're up. What do you got for us?
Let's see. Well, that was it on the 7680 case failures. Oh wait, no, it's not.
Nope, no, it isn't.
I had another M685 in storage, so I was like, I need a case to fly it. So I bought another 7680 case. Then there was a flash sale on M3700s, CTI White Thunder,
5.3 grain.
Yeah.
It's a straight up military motor.
Yeah. That was on my list of like, motors I dreamed about flying for like my entire life, or at least since that motor's been available. So and it was a good deal. So I was like, gotta buy it. Right. Put it in a 75, 76, 80 case with a spacer, and, put it in I guess I glued it up and then ended up not flying it. So then the next year at the next Airfest, I brought it and I was going to put it in my 4-inch Punisher. And then I was kind of like, I don't know, sometime like I just wasn't feeling good about it. And then Braden and Matt, Postart, was Postart there at that one?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. They're all like, come on, you got to fly it. And I was like, you're right. I got to fly it. And then it just KO'd super hard.
Well, you were trying to put it in your level 3 rocket, and you're like, but I think it'd be really cool in the Punisher, but I'm afraid it's going to KO. And we were all like, it's not going to KO. Put it in the Punisher.
I forgot about that.
That'll be way cooler. You're like, oh, but I don't care about the level 3 rocket that much. If it blows up, I won't be sad. But I'd be really sad if it blew up and destroyed 2 Stratologgers and the Punisher. And then it did exactly that.
Yeah, I forgot about that part. Yeah, I shouldn't have put it in that rocket, but you know what? It's still salvageable and it's sitting right behind me, so it will be rebuilt hopefully in the next year. But we're still out looking for another 7680 case because that brand new one got destroyed. And I still have that M685 in my closet, so
I thought you were getting one.
tentatively yes,
Okay,
but I haven't paid for it yet, so
got it.
we'll
Okay.
see.
Well, next on my list is the Fat Boy, but I'm gonna brush that off because it just broke the fin off at the dry lake bed, like rockets do. You know, the fins just come off sometimes.
Yeah, do fin brakes really count as a failure? Doesn't that seem just like part of it?
Yeah, at this point, it's just like a rite of passage. If you dare build a rocket that has fins that are good leverage points,
Swept?
and you're asking for it. So we're gonna move on to my Arcus, my full-scale HV Arcus that flew on an Evolution Space N16,000. If you're pretty familiar with my channel, you're probably pretty familiar with this flight. And yeah, I mean, you can read 150 Gs on paper all day and just like really not grasp how intense that is. So I used bunch of different methods I would not usually use for electronics bay, thinking I was doing the most for keeping it all secure, but I didn't pot the electronics and I didn't mount them facing up on the bottom of the electronics bay, which is really, I think, the only solution in that particular case. It was a
What does
G10
potting the electronics mean?
you glue the electronics to the sled, like you epoxy them in. I know a lot of people like basically do fillets for from the sled to the electronics, but there is also potting materials you can just straight up like run a bunch of wires so everything's externally controlled and just completely embed the electronics in epoxy.
Oh my god.
Which is what you need to do
hardcore.
if you're going to fly a 150G takeoff with a 4-inch end motor. And instead, I use a G10 sled and stainless hardware, and, you know, battery attachment was my big point of contention. So I used like a big G10 stopper that was glued and what I thought was sufficient and strapped down. And I had like positive battery locks, I guess we'll say, holding the batteries down to the sled, and I wrapped them in electrical tape like I usually would. Same thing for the battery on the Blue Raven. I like made sure everything was very locked down, but it just wasn't locked down, I guess. I'll never really know what happened. It could have been that the takeoff ripped the ejection charges apart because at that point those 3-gram charges weighed like a pound effectively at 150 Gs, so maybe it just yanked on the cords and ripped them out of the electronics. I had them secured on the D-ring so no stresses would be put on the electronics and just from the D-ring down, but in my head anyway, that's is a ridiculous flight, so I really don't feel too bad about my failure on that one. I think a lot of people put up against that motor in that particular rocket would probably wind up with a similar result. I'm happy the fin stayed on.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
It was gnarly. Like, I could not believe how hard it hit. And Steve was like expecting me to have like a big exuberant reaction to it, and all I did was like turn around. I was like, the motor worked. I need to see if my rocket's still good. So I pointed the tracker thing up there and I was like, yeah, it's going up. It's good. And then I was like, oh, it's coming down. Oh, it's down. That's not good.
The old.
Yep. All right. What do you got for us?
I think my most recent is probably the 2-inch Dark Star on the old AMW White Wolf. I found an old 38 millimeter Animal Motorworks case that me and my grandpa used. Well, actually, I don't know if we even ever flew it, but it was purchased back in 2006 or 2007, and I found it in a box of old stuff, and I was like, oh, cool. Does anyone have any? Or I guess we had a couple motors for it.
Yeah,
that
I
we
had
never
a
flown.
few.
Yeah. And then Braden had some, so I bought Braden's, and then he also had a case. So I bought his case. I think I actually bought Braden's case before I found my case. But so anyway, I flew one of the motors. It was fine in my case. It was fine. Then I stupidly bent my case while trying to clean it, which is a whole different story.
That's so awesome.
But I was like, that's okay, because I have the case I got from Braden. But I'm like, boy, this sure does look a little bit different. Are you sure this is an Animal Motorworks case? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, why does it have a Cosden bulkhead? And I don't know what the answer on that was, but
I don't remember who I bought that thing from, but it was somebody on the Rocketry forum.
Yeah, but you're like, yeah, I never flew it. It's like, right. Okay, I missed that part. So anyway, I was like, well, at this point, I didn't realize, I was like, oh, it's probably just, it was someone flew a Cosden motor in it. I didn't realize at the time that the Animal Motorworks and the Cosden dimensions were different on 38 millimeter stuff.
Yeah, the 38s don't get along. We've now come to realize.
I think it would have worked if I had different O-rings, because I used my nozzle and bulkhead in that case just to make sure, or I guess to use the reloads with it, to have like the right smoke delay grain or whatever and the right nozzle size. But they went in a little, in hindsight, went in probably a little too easy. So maybe a thicker O-ring would have worked.
It probably would have.
Because it actually kind of worked. Like the rocket looked like it flew normal. I was just like, man, smoke looks a little darker than it should be. And then all of a sudden, I'd like lose my tracker signal, and then I somehow just stumble upon the rocket, and it's like it's like separate. I don't know. Ever. Like it made no sense. And then the whole inside of it was burned. So then I was like, it basically just leaked out it was just leaking out both ends.
Yeah.
But the motor still burned enough that like it went pretty high.
You got two motors for the price of one, dude. One on each end. What are you complaining about?
I guess it didn't produce, it just leaked really hot gas and burned everything, but it didn't produce enough pressure to separate the rocket somehow. Very strange.
So yeah, O-rings probably would have solved that, because it wasn't like super potent. All right.
No, it wasn't like burning out the top of the motor. It was literally just leaking out both ends of the motor. And it destroyed my electronics, the tracker, the rocket, the whole thing. So,
all right.
That was a bummer.
We'll get into my second most recent failure, my Honest John, and I'll elaborate on the most recent one here in a second. But yeah, my beloved Smoking Rockets 7.5-inch Honest John flew beautifully the first time it flew. M650, 2J570s, 2J350s.
Great flight.
Not a problem at all. Awesome onboard footage. Everything went perfect. So this past weekend at Rockstock, I'm thinking, yeah, that rocket works. I know it works. And I've got an L1256. Let's fly that. It'll be cool. Cool motor. And yeah, cool so motor. Boost was great. Up was awesome. Comes down under drogue, and I'm filming it. And the clip is very haunting, because at the top of the flight, I was like, why do my big rockets always have to go towards the crowd? I don't like that. It just kind of kicked right above us, and so drogue separated. I was like, okay, thank God. Like, that would have been crazy. And I'm just tracking it all the way down, and through the camera, I watch both the main charges fire. Just vent smoke out the vent holes, and Nothing happened. No main chute came out. The only thing I had changed was that I did a deployment bag for this flight instead of bundling the ball up like I had before. And it actually packed looser with the deployment bag, so everything fit better than when I had to jam the whole Cert 3XL into the nose cone shoulder. So I was like, this is great. Everything's all bundled up in there nice. It all comes apart very easily. And it did. After we took it back apart, everything just came right out. The chute slid right out of the deployment bag, just off the table. It was awesome. It would have been great if the charges had fired. So, yes, it broke a fin off, just one. It's just what happens at Lucerne. The big problem is that it hit 2 trucks when it landed. So if you're a member of Tripoli or NAR, you know that there's property damage insurance coverage. What they don't tell you is that there's a pretty hefty deductible involved that you are responsible for out of pocket in the incident. With Tripoli, it's $2,500 per incident. So
maybe.
Well, that's what it says on the website. It says $2,500
Okay.
property damage per incident. I don't know if this would be considered one incident or not, but it looks like through Tripoli insurance, this could cost me up to $5,000, which I definitely don't just have. I don't even have just $2,500 sitting around. So that's been stressful, just not knowing, because fortunately my friend Karsten, shout out to Karsten, is an insurance adjuster for AAA. He came over and talked to the guys with me, and they have comprehensive insurance, and their rates won't go up if they make a claim against it. That way. Both of them are really cool. One guy had like just gotten his truck back from the body shop with fresh paint that my Rocket ruined, and yeah, but it's looking like the cheapest way I could get away with it is maybe $500 per truck deductible. So my nice, easy, laid-back Rocksock L flight is going to cost me probably at least $1,000 that I don't really have. So yeah, if you guys want to check out rocketvlogs.com, got lots of good merch over there. And keep that in mind, I guess, if you're flying rockets, because it doesn't have to be a big rocket to do serious damage to something like that. Maybe watch where your pad's pointed a little bit, to think of the wind ahead if you're going to fly something heavy. I don't know why it came over the crowd. The pad was pointed straight up. There was no wind. It just kind of took that trajectory. I'm very happy that the drogue chute came out, obviously, but it was still a 35-pound rocket on a 6 or 5 foot chute. The Sather parachute, actually, the burned one.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, pretty fast recovery, and now I have the video. It had a great onboard video, but I'm not sure yet if that's going to get posted anywhere. And I would like to make a video talking about it for public consumption after all the insurance stuff is handled. But yeah, I figured it's not going to hurt anything to mention it on the podcast. Fortunately, people were paying attention, and this is what the heads up calls and everything are for. So everybody was out of the way. I felt especially bad because the nose cone popped some guy's sleeping bag or air mattress. So I was like, dude, I have one in my house. I will go get it for you. And he's like, no, it's fine. I'll just sleep on the cold, hard desert ground. Yeah, what a disaster, dude. You imagine if that happened with the Punisher? We just drop it on somebody's truck.
No.
So yeah, keep those deductibles in mind. Somebody told me the NAR one is $5,000, which a friend of mine put into good perspective because it's like all property damage. So like, you could burn down a field or a house and pay $2,500 for it, which seems like a great value. But when it's just a buff and PDR, it's a lot of money. So hopefully it'll be cheaper than that. But at any rate, it's definitely not going to be cheap. And I do have one more failure that just happened about 30 minutes ago. And I feel like the viewership of this particular podcast episode is going to be a little low on YouTube because about half an hour ago, The program I used to screen record it just said recording terminated, and I checked the file and all of it's gone. So the first 40 minutes of the podcast will now have no video. And I'm going to put this at the beginning of hey, everybody, the first 40 minutes of this podcast is not going to have any video. Sorry about that. Shout out to OBS Studio 27.1.3 revision. Oh, awesome. It's all right. Well, let's move on to the mailbag section, shall we?
Did that have something to do with why your video kept freezing?
No, yours kept freezing on mine too, but I just rolled through it. I was like, yeah, whatever. Okay. Your audio is still going to be good. So, okay. So, Sleepy Sack asks, what is your biggest build error when building rockets?
Biggest what?
Build error. When you were building something, you did something wrong. I can tell you mine probably was the Hojo, and for some reason, the decision not to cut down the motor tube. So I gave myself like 2 inches of packing space for the drogue side. For some reason, I left a full 3-foot motor tube in there.
Yeah, that's what happened when I rebuilt my Polecat Nike Smoke, which it works, but like it's really packed in there.
I did remember why
I cut down.
I did it because I wanted to put the rail button in the top centering ring. I remember that now, but other than that, I think I was like meticulous enough even as a child to like kind of plan things out pretty well. I think maybe another one is that I left the motor tube out a half an inch so that I could put a retainer on the Little John, and then decided that since the centering ring was flush, the glue-on retainer would look ugly. So I had to cut it down to do the flanged bolt-on one instead. But that's like an afterthought sort of thing, not so much as an error when building it. But and I guess my 54 minimum diameter when the epoxy didn't cure, so I had to break the fins off and scrape all the fillets off and start over.
Binder designed Stealth, and I had ended up with some 2-part expanding foam, and I was super stoked on it, but I just built this rocket, and I was like, oh, I really wanted to use it on something, so I decided it would be cool if I drilled holes in the centering ring and poured some in, not thinking about how that was like now a sealed space, and it just blew out the side.
Oh, good.
It just like, it was horrible to watch because it just like blew out the side in between of the fin can in between the fins.
Perfect.
And so I like cut that part out and shaved it down, but it was never the same. That rocket actually never flew, which is just super sad. I ended up cutting the shot cord out of it to use in something else, and I don't know, somehow the whole rocket got salvaged before it even flew. I'm not sure how that happened.
I had a couple rockets that were like that. I built them from just junk and then needed pieces off them, so I just disassembled them and never flew them. But okay, well, let's move on to our final question. It's Alex Krishenko. He says, I know I have my own answers to this question, but how do you stay motivated after a failure? Losing an Estes rocket as a kid is sad, but losing a high-power rocket with electronics, recovery gear, and motor cases can be devastating. What motivation drives you to keep building and flying? I think mostly for me, it's just that you kind of have to accept that that's part of it. Like, everybody who builds rockets and flies a lot of them is going to have some form of an issue. Jim Jarvis is like one of the most meticulous people, builds these amazing rockets, but even he, at Airfest a few years ago, one of his boosters came in ballistic. There's so many variables that you're almost guaranteed at some point to have some form of an issue. So it's easiest just to move on. And yes, the money part sucks, but it sucks a lot more if you have like borrowed hardware or like have to pay for 2 people's trucks or whatever. Rocketvlogs.com. But it is just like, what are you going to do? You know, it's done. It happened. You can give up or you can just try again. Have fun.
Yeah. I think for me, it's like just knowing how much I love rocketry, and like you're just like well, on to the next thing. You know, I think there's definitely people where that big failure happens and they're like, that sucks so bad, I don't want to go through that again.
Yeah,
I think I'm just going to have a different hobby now.
we're really worried that's what Matt went through with the demon coming ballistic on the L850.
He was super bummed.
He came back to help build the Arcus, but he hasn't been to a launch at all this year.
Yeah.
Everybody comment to motivate Matt. We want Macho Matt in the comments.
The other thing is like just give yourself a little bit of time to regroup. It's kind of like my game plan. Like when I lost that first 7680 case and that minimum diameter rocket with everything that was in that rocket was expensive on that flight, but I had a brand new shoot release, a brand new Fruity Shoots Iris, and 2 altimeters, the case. Like it was a dumb amount of money, and I'm like, I can't fly anything else this weekend because if I fly another rocket and that crashes, it's going to be harder to come back from that.
Yeah,
so
I did the same
like
thing.
enjoyed myself at the launch and then like waited for a different launch to regrouped and you know, what can I do differently? Or sometimes there isn't anything you can do differently. Sometimes things just happen, but don't set yourself up to get beat down that hard.
Right. Yeah, I had a G138 for my Aerotech Sumo to fly this past weekend too, and like there's so little that could go wrong with that, and I was just like, I'm not going to bother. I'm not doing this. I don't want to. I'm just gonna film some rockets, come hang out, say hi to people. I'm good.
It's like that time my grandpa and I went to Lucerne, and I felt like every rocket he flew, something happened, and it was just. I mean, I had one rocket crash, and then I called it after that, but it was just like devastating, and you could tell he was beaten down from it, like. Like, well, we drove all this way and crashed every rocket I brought somehow.
Yeah, and I know how far it is. It's like 25 hours because I live right by Lucerne and I just drove to your house.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just is what it is. You gotta, like anything else in life, you quit and be a little baby about it, sit and cry in the corner, pee your pants if you want. Or you can just accept that things happen and write some checks to some insurance companies, rocketvlogs.com, and then move on.
Another thing is like kind of something that applies. I don't know. All this kind of reminds me of like I race rally cars, and so there's those at some point in their life always end up destroyed by a tree. But like you just fly rockets at the level that you're able to, I guess. So like if you are gonna go all out on something, be prepared to lose it, I guess. Just assume that that's like going to happen at some point.
Yeah,
it will at some point. If you do it long enough, something will probably happen.
Once I have spent the money and I have the rocket stuff in my hands or in a rocket, whatever, electronics, whatever, I'm like that money's already gone, right? And you can't do anything about getting that. Well, you can sell stuff, I guess, but you stay with me here. Here's the point. If it's gone, it's gone. If something happens, you lose it forever. Then that money was already spent in the first place. Yes, it sucks to have to replace it. You don't necessarily have to. You could back down a little bit, whatever. Or you can go bigger. Get out the credit card, swipe it at rocketvlogs.com. I don't have any rocketry stuff for sale, but like, you know, good time for a plug. But yeah, I mean, don't fly things you can't afford to fly, or if you decide to do that anyway, like we do, you get like 30 seconds to be sad about it.
And yeah, there's always that possibility. We keep talking about, you know, flying the 12-inch Punisher, if something were to happen to that destroys all those motor cases,
It's gonna be
we
tough.
are going to be at ground zero. There's going to be we're going to need a GoFundMe or something. I'm not sure what our game plan is from that point, because that's like all of our 75 millimeter hardware.
We haven't planned for that specifically, but
so if God forbid would ever be anything go wrong when we fly that rocket, we need all those motor cases back.
Yeah,
and the nose cone preferably. But if we had to choose on that one, I would say motor cases.
Yeah, the $400 nose cone or the $3,000 in motor hardware. Split up amongst us, it doesn't seem that bad. Like, we've more recklessly spent money than that if you break down the cost of the Punisher like we did last week. Building that rocket and flying it costs us more than that. But, yeah, it would be rough to have just flown that rocket on $4,000 or $5,000 worth of propellant that we already didn't really have the funding for, and then having to buy a bunch of new motor cases. So, yeah, be tough days, but we're not going to let that stop us. We're still going to punish, dude. We have to punish. We're built to punish.
We got to.
You have a Punisher, you punish with it. That's just what it is. But that is it for the Podcast6 mailbag, and I think that also means that it is it for the podcast. Taylor, give yourself some plugs.
Check out the Rocket channel on YouTube.
What? Where is it?
There will be.
Okay, all right.
But it's still being worked on.
All right. Well,
it takes time to make a diamond, my friend.
Yeah.
Or what is that? It takes pressure to make it diamond? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pressuring
The
you
fact
right
is,
now.
the video's not done, but you could go watch some older videos.
It takes something somewhere. Yeah, speaking of which, I have a couple videos that I need to edit and put out as well. But if you're not familiar, you just happen to stumble upon this podcast and listen to it for the entire hour and 30 minutes without realizing you're on Rocket Vlogs, that is my channel. Or if you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Music, whatever, please follow us or write us a review and do all the podcast stuff. My name is Braden. You can also find me on Instagram at BigB1011. You want to plug your Instagram, Taylor?
Sure, yeah. My name's Taylor Jesse, and you can find me on Instagram at TJSnakes with a Z.
We are the Anti-Gravity Group, and this has been the Anti-Gravity Group podcast. We'll see you next time.